Welcome to the settlement. I'm Finn, and the big one is here. The Gambler's Chest expansion has landed on the simulator. I've been waiting for most of the year for this, so that's pretty exciting. This is going to not exactly be an unboxing video because I personally am not a fan of those, don't really watch them, but I am going to be unboxing it during the whole thing. It's more going to be an overview, review, and kind of just hopefully a little cozy chat about the Gambler's Chest, which I've had over a year with now, I think. Time is a flat circle, so when was the Gambler's Chest dropped? 2023? That doesn't seem right. I can't remember when I got it. I've lost track of when I got it. It feels like it's I've had an eon with it, but that's possibly because I've been playing with it so much. So first of all, let's just open this box. This one's way tattier and grimmer than the one that I got. My delivery box arrived perfectly clean. Actually, this is like the interior box. This shouldn't really look like this at all, but it's all fun, whatever. If we open it up, we're gonna unbox it into, oh wow, it goes straight into the game room. I guess that's pretty wise, not putting it into the inventory. So let's see what happens when you first unbox it, where all the bits and pieces go. We can take a little wander around and see. I may then have to pause the recording occasionally to gather bits together. Also, the simulator has been halting a lot since this update. It's just like had big pauses for me, so we'll have to see if that happens a lot as we sit here in this white void, like last week tonight. There we go. Right, so that's all of the stuff in this laid out. It's quite a lot, and let's see where it all lands. Right, okay, that's there. The miniatures in the shelf, they are. You can just about see over there the gambler. Right, so that means I'm going to have to doing a bunch of pausing to move things around. I really hoped I could have it all on the table to start with, but you know, that's how it is. So that's our new box with. This is, let's rotate it. There we go. This is, it's holding Frog Dog and Sea Patterns and things. No, not Frog Dog. Yeah, is that? Yeah, that's Frog Dog. Sea Patterns, Bone Eaters. Okay, so this is somewhat similar to the physical version of the game, which is pretty cool. We've got this little settlement box and new tokens and things. We'll go through all of that as and when. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a moment and grab everything else and get it all together. So I'll be back instantaneously, but it's going to be a little while for me. Okay, here we are. Hopefully I've picked up everything. It's hard to say. Stuff got quite scattered around. It was a little tricky to find some things. For example, these guys are not called Bone Eater dash whatever. They just have the particular name identified to them based on their properties, like knife and skull and I think body, maybe that one, skeleton. So also I couldn't find this guy's miniature at all, but I did find a couple of surprises. So it'll be a little sort of messy and we'll get into it all, but let's start with as per the book here, the new campaign nodes and pillars system. So this is a framework for you making your own campaigns. This feels like a prototype, sort of temporary patch. It's very much feels like it's waiting for Campaigns of Death to fully round it out, but it is helpful. It talks about the nodes, which is the thing I've used for reference for quite a while now, because it's a very helpful way to talk about monsters rather than be like, these are the Lantern Year 1 monsters, these are the Lantern Year 2 monsters. Instead, it sort of formalised them all together, Node 1, Node 2, Node 3, Node 4. For the quarries, separate node 1, 2, and 3 for the Nemesis monsters, and then we've got our core monsters and our finale monsters and the Lonely Tree, which goes in every campaign. You may as well just put it in all of them. And then we got extra things called pillars. So this is helpful because it does allow you to work out more easily which monsters are roughly the same, swap them back and forth. We have Frog Dog on top of these, so White Lion, Gore, Crimson Crocodile, and now Frog Dog, node 1s. Node 2s, Screaming Antelope, Ridiculous Flower Knight, Smog Singers. The Flower Knight sits a little bit out of the rest, it's awkward. It's definitely still a node 2 monster power level wise because it's a pretty fragile monster, but it doesn't turn up until Lantern Year 5, which does cause an issue if you follow their, like, hey, this is how we do it, one from each node kind of thing, which I personally don't follow at all these days. I prefer a pyramid, which I'll get into in a moment. We got our node 3s, Phoenix, Dragon King, Sunstalker, and node 4 quarry monsters. This is the node I think is kind of the least well defined, because the Dung-Beaten Light and Lion God are definitely not quite on the same level as the node 3 monsters, but they're nowhere near the king at all. And honestly, I've written this and I'm just going to say it in the video here, I genuinely think that there should be a node quarry 5, which is where the king and the upcoming Screaming God would sit, and then node quarry 4 is for things like the Dung-Beaten Light and Lion God that sort of sit between the two, because it would just be more interesting and fairer. Because right now, Dung-Beaten Light, I love it, but it's not node 4, no chance. I'm not putting the Dung-Beaten Light in over the king at all. I just, no. Nemesis monsters, similar sort of thing, broken apart to NNs. Various nodes. We obviously now have the Pariah as well, and the Red Witches and the Black Knight. Red Witches and Black Knight are easily the best in their respective nodes, which is 2 and 3. Pariah is one of 3 very good monsters. Node 1 Nemesis has a glut of them. Then we got our core monsters. So effectively you pair up your core monsters with finale monsters if you have them. So we've got the 4 campaigns. That's the 3 previous, plus People of the Dreamkeeper. So we have People of the Lantern, that'll be Watcher, Gold Smoke Knight. People of the Dreamkeeper, that'll be Gambler and Godhand. And then you've got People of the Stars, Dragon King, People of the Sun, Sunstalker. One thing to note about those 2 is they definitely need an update. The Dragon King's finale, core monster, and the Sunstalker's core monster is effectively the finale monster for the campaign, and currently they can't really stand up because their toughness is a bit low. So I'd recommend, I think I've said this before, just boost the toughness of those guys to either 27 or 30. That matches 27's the Gold Smoke Knight and 30's the Godhand. They will still not be as difficult as the Gold Smoke Knight and Godhand, but they will give you a challenge then, because otherwise those guys often get steamrolled. People of the Stars and People of the Sun traditionally have created very powerful monsters. We've also got pillars, which is like little extra optional bits and pieces. We'll be looking through those in this video. They're all they put little sort of pillar complexities. I'm gonna say that Ark Survivors really should be some more like 5 pillars, because it is really complicated, and I think Wanderers are actually nearer around 2 pillars, but the rest is fine. And ultimately this kind of pillars thing is just to sort of give you an idea that Ark Survivors are more complicated than the rest. I do think like 2 pillars is fine for encounters, so that's pretty well balanced. We'll talk about it. Yeah, they got a nice little sort of, hey, this is how you can customize your campaign. This is maybe the roles you might want to give people in order to shout the load. And this fun little piece of artwork, which has the sculptor, the scribe, the hand / God hand, and the gambler sharing out roles on the board, which is always fun. I mean, Kingdom Death really does skirt the 4th wall a lot, and in fact outright breaks it at points in this box genuinely plays with the fourth wall. So yeah, on the whole, I think this system's fine. It doesn't. You do need to be sort of flexible with it. If you try and follow it rigidly, you may not get an experience that you really want. You might, but ultimately, it's nice to see this sort of thing of like, hey, we do have a sandbox game, and these are the ways you can put pieces together. But as I said near the beginning of this bit, Campaigns of Death is absolutely the thing which this system's waiting for. So I consider this a placeholder, tide you over, and also this really fun piece of artwork, which I love. I love this piece. It's great. Right, so we'll move on to, hopefully, here it is, our first module. We're going to be looking at the monsters. We've got the Crimson Crocodile. So I'm going to try and set these up each time just to sort of show a little bit of it. This is the best way I can get all the cards out. This is the Crimson Crocodile and the Crimson Armour survivors armed with various crimson weapons of different types. It's a Node 1 quarry monster. Let's set it up. It can also be, and we'll do that, a prologue monster. I think this is the best prologue fight out of the three we have right now. It's got a interesting wrinkle in that it unlocks the Crimson Crockery, which is crafting location, immediately afterwards. That is super interesting, and it breaks up the usual patterns that you may fall into, because when you just have the three starting locations, things become very, I'm not going to say rote, but somewhat. Okay, so we've the game hasn't respected me repositioning the board. That's fine. We can fix everything quickly afterwards. Just do this. These kind of things should be expected when an update happens. Move this over here. We'll talk about these little cards in a little bit. Okay, interesting. It did default to Ark Survivors for this prologue, even though they don't necessarily have to be. I think maybe I needed to update the anchors. That was the problem. So that is probably on me. I'll just quickly do that now, just in case, because otherwise we're going to be going through this again and again. So yeah, I think that's probably on me for not updating the anchors. Anyway, I don't know. I didn't associate survivor sheets, so the models, the little survivor models, are missing. So I'm going to pause and grab them and just get some proxy, some dummy, I should say, survivor sheets. Give me a second. Yep, there we go. So yeah, it was on me. The anchors weren't set up correctly for this. So that is all done and sorted. It's not grabbing this board in any way, shape or form, so that's something you may need to pay attention to. We will find out if this works this way or not. We'll see. Anyway, Crimson Crocodile. So this is, as I said, I think the best of the prologue monsters. I do think it's the best Node 1 monster, and it is in competition for being one of the best monsters in the game. It is a fantastic design. This is sometimes scary, threatening, goofy, creepy. It's never safe. Never ever when I fight against this monster do I feel, oh, everything's fine, it's going to be an easy ride. You get locked into that in some cases with other monsters. This one, it can always just be a little bit threatening, and a big part of that is, excuse me guys, you need to just be over here, thank you. This mechanic here, sorry, clip, of if being terrified, which is a extra status card that it hasn't deployed out, that's fine. Basically, it makes it impossible for you to defend yourself, and the Crimson Crocodile extra punishes this, sometimes with auto kills. It feels like that's kind of scary, but the fact is that this has a nice little balance, because you're terrified if your insanity reaches 0. This blood pool, which is always present, provides a way of gaining insanity in Showdown. You then also have to calm yourself down by spending an activation as well, so it's not like you get to clean out being terrified quickly, but you do have at least tools for handling this, which is pretty sweet. In fact, the middle of the pool can even give you Immortal, which is actually kind of not great for survivors. I don't know how I've duplicated these dice with that. I wish I had this many dice on the simulator, I tell you. I genuinely think we should get a set of dice per player, even if they're just, like, you know, the ordering was here, but whatever. That's not the point. This is great. This is like, for me, if I was doing tier rankings, and maybe if people are interested, I'll do a tier ranking list of like all the monsters released. This is S tier, easily top 3 monsters in the game. Maybe even it's number 1. It's kind of close. The Black Knight and the Butcher both are very, very good as well. Quarry monster wise though, this is my favourite, and my favourite and preferred campaign start. I'm going to try and convince Justin over on Playing Board Games that we start with Crimson Crocodile, because 1, I think is going to terrify him, and 2, I think it's just a really good monster. Great find. So yeah, that's the Crimson Crocodile, our Node 1 monster, one of the best, absolutely. The gear is based around bleeding, self-bleeding, which is the Crimson Crocodile bleeds itself. Oh, I didn't even talk about that. Let's talk about that. So one of the things that's really interesting is this enchanted flesh, which is a trait that basically some of the hit locations, this is the very first one that's always set on top, they do this persistent injury thing where they put a coagulated hit location on top. So I'm just going to grab whatever, like this one here, and it goes on top of the deck like that. And so you know it's up next, and it has this blue spot which you have to attack into that spot, you know, be in range of it or adjacent to it if you're attacking in melee, and be able to draw a line to this spot to attack it from, otherwise you get an automatic fail. So it adds a whole extra level of positioning, and the crocodile likes to roll left and right because it's a crocodile, and it likes to wiggle forwards and backwards because it's a crocodile that gets the zoomies. And yeah, once you have it, then it sort of flips up, and as you can see here, unless you attack the highlighted spot, it's an automatic failure. There's more rules there. You usually get a bonus to strength to wound in the location, and then this is sort of can produce extra chances, resources, things like that. It's a very cool design. So as these occur, these will get taken out of the deck, and then eventually you may end up with, especially in a longer fight, a deck that has this mixture of these backed cards and these, and you kind of get some information as to what's going on. I'm going to tell you, the boss battlers that put information on the back of their cards, fantastic, top tier. Kingdom Death kind of can't do that. They're sort of baked into this flat back, but this is an interesting way of adding one of the best newer boss battling mechanics into Kingdom Death, and I think it's fantastic. So yeah, amazing monster. I'm gonna be doing a Dark Bestiary on it very soon, ahead of the Phoenix, because I mean, if you give me the choice between talking about the Crimson Crocodile or the Phoenix, I'm gonna take the Crimson Crocodile every time. But also, it does mean I can then talk about the new Phoenix stuff that's in the Gambler's Chest, which is nice to have it all tied together. Okay, as I was saying, the armor set and other gear is partially based around this self-bleeding concept, but also has some insanity-based mechanics where you can get a mind lock token, and it stops you suffering the next bout of brain damage. So this is designed for counterplay against the Crimson Crocodile. It also scales with how much bleeding you have. So it has a set ability that when you activate it, you gain armor points to all locations equal to the number of bleeding tokens you have. So there is a build where you get a ton of bleeding tokens, get as close to death as possible, pump up your armor, and then clear out the bleeding tokens. It's really fun, and it lets this armor set scale nicely into the mid game. It is, without a doubt, for me, the best Node 1 armor set. It's the most interesting, it's the most well balanced. Frog Dog, Frog Dog's close. Okay, Frog Dog armor set, very good as well. But this is the gold standard for me. I compare every new armor set to this, and I'm like, is this better than this or worse? It's my favourite. Then we have the Smog Singers. So this is our Node 2 quarry. They're very interesting in that, as you can see, there are 3 of them. So if we do a setup of a level 1 showdown, and let's see if I've done everything right now and don't have to deal with the showdown board relocating itself because I've messed up. Yeah, so there's 3 of them in the fight, and they share a health pool, so they effectively play. Yes, there we go. That's not too bad. Just the dice in slightly the wrong spot. That's fine. Yeah, so they work as a monster with 1 health pool, but like three separate units, which is very interesting in how it plays. They are incredibly passive. There's a whole thematic thing about why they're like this. They're kind of a non-hostile monster, but also the survivors are driven to hate them and despise them and want to rip them to pieces, and that's part of the whole mechanics in this. I can't call them an absolute success. They are interesting. They have some neat stuff like, let's see if we can get this up, so they do harmonies at higher levels where they start to perform the sort of songs, and they have vibration damage, which is very interesting. You get to pick where damage gets dealt to, which you look at and go, okay, well that's really good, because if I take like 5 damage, I can ensure it doesn't all land on one location. So it's, when you've got armor, it works really, really well. But once you are lacking in armor points anywhere, these deal 1 point at a time, so suddenly it stacks up through your injuries and onto severe injuries fairly quickly. So there's a real threat to vibration damage, which they don't fully employ, but it's not too bad. I mean, a great example of how passive they are is this. Their basic action is they look upward and deal a little bit of vibration damage and guilt tokens. Guilt tokens is one of the ways they punish survivors, and their instinct is to, if we can just see, run away and assume a peaceful pose getting knocked down. Again, inflicting guilt on survivors if they wound. Which, let's see if this is... Nope. No. Okay, I can't. They should just be in the token box thing. Oh no, they're not there. That's right. We don't get specific guilt tokens. I always think we do, because I use the red... they don't come up as red tokens. I use the red lantern tokens to represent these. Anyway, so... let's just step back a second, because I'm getting all flustered. But as I said, we're just kind of just talking about this sort of casual like, and there's a lot. So the overall arcing thing of this is survivors feel driven to attack them at times, and they start to feel guilty about it, which they gradually gain tokens on here, and at 3+ guilt tokens they are guilty, 3 being a fairly common threshold for something, 3 insanity, etc, etc. And being guilty has impacts during the showdown. Some things will do various elements if you're guilty. The trap card in particular punishes it. You have this as a safety valve. You can sing as an activation, it'll flip the card. I'm not going to go into what that does here, but part of it is it will clear out your guilt tokens. But, it's... let's just say it's always a fun moment the first time you flip up one of these and find out what it does. There are multiple different ones, but yeah. So, Smog Singers as a showdown, kind of the idea really comes down to, mechanically they're punching bags that punish you for punching them. What that means is they need a lot of health in order to be able to really pay out. They don't quite have the numbers at level 1 and level 2. So they tend to be a bit easier. They're not as easy as the Flower Knight, but kind of around that sort of bracket where they're not a tough Node 2 monster. I still really like them though, and I think at level 3 it's incredibly interesting what's going on, and they have other neat mechanics, like you can reach a concord with them where they give you an innovation and you get to keep it as long as you don't attack them. So it's interesting world building. It's just a little, I know, a little bit undertuned at level 2, I think, but they still have a place because weaker monsters help newer players get to grips with things. We then have, these are very cool, some of my favourite models. This is the Smog Singer armor, the Singer armor. It is a like bard armor. You can see you've got the little pie hat which puts out smoke. They have musical instruments, which does add another bit of problem because musical instruments tend to be noisy, and I've talked about that a fair bit in the past, but suffice to say there's a huge price to pay when it comes to noisy stuff. This isn't noisy and it's quite good, and the armor set is amazing. It's really what I want Node 2 armor sets to be like. It's got a decent amount of armor points, it's got good affinities, it's got a situational but interesting ability, and it's got a really good ability on the Smog hat, which can like cancel a hit. So it's the standard to which I'd like to see other Node 2 armor sets pulled up to. Just like this, I'd like to see Node 1 armor sets pulled up to this. In respect to the rest of the gear, there's so many noisy things in this because it's got sort of bard related. This is the sax, which is a wonderful name, and I can't remember the name of this triangle, but as you can see they've got bells on them. There's a pita here, musical instruments. That means they all have noisy, and your boy the Harvester ruins noisy stuff and spoils the fun for all of us. So yeah, just something to be aware of. Next up, we've got Atnas. This is, let's set up a level 1 showdown for Atnas. Atnas is a Node 2 Nemesis monster. A lot of the focus is around population, like every Node 2 monster tends to have some sort of thing that it focuses around that could help you, except for the Kingsman, who exists to deliver misery and pain in buckets. But Atnas is interesting. First of all, he has this mechanic where, as you can see, he starts over here with some AI cards in the wound stack, their moods, and he'll reach in to use them during the showdown. He's sort of in 2 modes to him, effectively. Yeah, there we are. The first mode is he's sort of this big bumbling buffoon who staggers around the place, falls over, and generally has like a lot of trouble. And the reason for that is this thing on his back, this jellyfish sack, is kind of symbiotically bonded with him in some fashion, and it's really messed him up. Other times, though, especially during the trap, he'll remember something of who he used to be, and he'll employ these over here. Yeah, these things called swordcraft cards, which are like big, hard-hitting moves of very anime-esque or wushu, I think it's wushu style, of lots of fantastic sword moves and stuff like that. Wuxia is the genre I'm thinking of. Wuxia, not wushu, wuxia. He's a very skilled swordsman, but he's mostly forgotten what he's doing. He's also, as you can see, got this whole child eater thing going on. The sack as well, and over here. And that is, if we flip this up, that's his full title, the Atlas the Child Eater, Unseen Shooting Star of the Solar Diamond Age. Yeah, he's an interesting character. I don't find that the Gambler's Chest gives us enough information on him to really make him gripping. There's sort of some hints of who he used to be buried away, but for the most part, you don't see it too much. I'm not going to go going too much in the lore, but you can see here this I believe is a image of Atnas before he became what he is now. This, if you're interested, this star here, this compass, it works with the swordcrafts to ensure you orientate everything correctly and cover the right spots that he hits, because his attacks are pretty wild and cover a big area. Overall, Atnas is another semi-troubled Node 2 quarry monster, and one big thing I'm not particularly a fan of is how large he is compared to the king. We'll get talking about that soon, but in addition, he's a little bit goofy. You know, he's a Santa Claus Krampus style character in this game, and he has additional promotional content that comes out every year at Christmas, holiday season. So he's very tied to that. It's a weird one. I love the model. I think the model's really cool. I like the living antlers, which is similar to the thing that we see from the Abyssal Woods. The witches, they wear something a little bit similar. I don't think it's exactly the same. And as I said, this living jelly sack is very cool as well. So there's some good stuff in that, but overall, I think he's kind of middling when it comes to how good he is in the Nemesis scale of things. Right, then we have last of the showdowns I'm actually going to set up. I'm not going to set up these, I'm going to talk about these just without setting them up. But this is the King. The King originally, like, this model comes from 2013, 2014. And he was originally, it was going to be a part of the Lantern Festival expansion, but that got cancelled because the scale was just not going to work. You needed something more. Although that's been retooled now, and the King is just a quarry monster. I would say just, but in quotations. This is a very interesting monster. Many of the Kingdom Death monsters fail to put huge time pressure on you unless things roll badly, or you haven't developed your equipment enough. Your gear is a little bit undercooked because of whatever reasons. What I mean by that is, you can, with most monsters, put yourself in a situation where you've got a ton of evasion and you just sort of tank what they're doing and gradually cut them down. Time is on your side. The King doesn't feel that way to me. The King feels a bit more puzzle-like. It feels more like there's pressure to get the showdown completed in a reasonable time, and you don't really want to be stalling. I think it's a very good Node 4 monster. I think it's a very good quarry monster. I think it's super interesting. It's got some wild and fun mechanics. I just wish the miniature had a retooling, which is something I really hoped, because I've owned two plastic Kings for a long time before the Gambler's Chest came out, and they're all exactly the same model, exactly the same cast as well. And this is something that impacts a lot of the Gambler's Chest, is that some of the older models are in this, and we've got, like, for example, let's get our thing back, these guys here. These are in the new scale, and they are absolutely fantastic miniatures. They are so brilliant. I love all of these new Survivor miniatures. The new scale, the additional detail, the decision to change them was fantastic, and it holds up. Like, this is a work of art. It's just gorgeous. But the scale changed partway through the Gambler's Chest, and let me see if I can grab one of the models that exemplifies it. Okay, so here we are. This is the Lion Knight from the Lion Knight expansion, and if we look at the size of the model, he is, let's just try and basically, the same size as these new models. This is even more noticeable in physical because they have been scaled up. For example, if I grab, what's her name? The White Fang? Is it no White Fang? Yeah, White Fang. So White Fang has been like scaled up slightly in the simulator because my model of this is like smaller than these other guys, and that's it looks like here in the simulator, if I make any sense, they've done a little bit to sort of rescale them, which is great, but be aware in the physical form some of the models are going to look a bit small, and White Fang in particular, you see her eyes there on this. I cannot see them on the miniature. I have the miniature here right now, and they are just not visible. Her face doesn't have any of the real detail that I'm seeing on the digital version. So that's sort of what happened to the king is the main thing I'm trying to get at here. Is if we take Atnas and we put Atnas next to the king, the scope of detail, the size, the design, Atnas is a incredible work of art, and the king just talented sculpting, but Kingdom Death has changed since this model was out here. Like if we let's send you to the shelf, buddy. There you go. Like the side view here, you can see just how thin this model is, and the little train. Can we see it here? They've actually textured a little bit of detail on the underside. This doesn't have any texturing at all in the physical model, so that's the big disappointment for me on the king. I don't think this model holds up to the presence that this monster is supposed to have. It's got the style, it's got the flair, but it lacks the modern Kingdom Death sensibility. Fortunately, when you're fighting it, different matter. Mechanically, this is an incredible monster. It's really enjoyable to fight. It's great. The armor and weapons you get from it are fantastic. Although I will say they're kind of a bit too strong for some of the monsters. Like the Gambler and Godhand can keep up. Well, it's post-Gambler, I should say. The Godhand can keep up. I meant Gambler. People of the Dreamkeeper, which is the Gambler's campaign. The Godhand can keep up, but the Gold Smoke Knight struggles a bit against this. So let's get rid of you as well. Boop. So it's really, really strong gear, and once you have it, and it's designed for you to get fairly quickly, because the king turns up in the 20s, early 20s in Lantern years, so you don't have a lot of time to hunt it. It's just insanely good. It's fun to play with, but it does crowd out some of the other monsters around that time. There's also an additional little wrinkle that's slightly awkward to deal with, because of how People of the Lantern works. Once the Watcher has been slain, you're supposed to fight all the monsters at level 3, and the king, as I said, turns up in early teens, so you could kill the Watcher, and then the king turns up and is straight away level 3. Now if you're experienced, if you're a strong player, you can take on the king immediately at level 3, especially with Ark Survivors, but as it stands here, it just doesn't feel like it meshes quite right, and I'm interested to see if they do any updates in Campaigns of Death to better mesh the king with campaigns like People of the Lantern, where they weren't really designed with Node 4 monsters in mind. But this is one of the highlights of the expansion for sure. As I was saying, it puts a lot of pressure on the players. You don't have a lot of time, and that feels really good because it's almost like it reminds me of Aeon Trespass's bosses. Some of those, like the Hermisian Pursuer, they basically say if you get to turn 4, Titans are going to start dying, and that makes the fight feel very tense. The king isn't quite on that level of threat normally, but it can do, and you do feel a time pressure, which I like. I like that I'm not I don't feel encouraged to turtle at all in this particular showdown. I want to move forward, I want to complete it. It's also got some very, very fun mechanics that again play a little bit with the fourth wall, and I'll talk about those when I finally do a Dark Bestiary on this monster. But yeah, it's very, very good, and it's a great part of it. Last of all, we've got the Gambler and the Godhand. These are a pair. These are part of the People of the Dreamkeeper campaign. I'll talk about the People of the Dreamkeeper campaign in full a little bit further down the line, probably near the end. But I'll say that I really, really like the Gambler Showdown. I think it's fantastic, very fun. Shows there's a lot more design space left in Kingdom Death for them to play around with. Really does a good job of bringing this character to life, this important individual, this entity, and it's just such a delight. It's a delight. I don't really want to spoil it. The Godhand, I prefer the Gold Smoke Knight as a finale monster. I get what the Godhand is doing, but it does feel like a finale. I think that's the important thing. It definitely is just not necessarily the way I want the finale to be. But you do have to respect this guy, and it is fun to see the hand somewhat unleashed in comparison to his normal toying around with you form. Very sadly, I don't have this miniature. Well, I do, but it had an accident, and all of the cloak got mangled, the head got mangled, the sword got mangled, so I have to play this showdown using the normal hand miniature, which is a shame, but I don't really know what to do about that. It's not a lot that can be done. It's a pity. You just probably will never see a painted version of this model from me, unless I somehow manage to get my hands on another one from somewhere, but I can't afford an entire second Gambler's chest for just this miniature and a few other bits and pieces. What can you do? Anyway, so on the whole, new monsters I think are interesting. There's some absolute standout greats: Crocodile, the King, the Gambler, and Godhand. Smog Singers I really like having in, even though I accept that they're a bit easier. Atnas is the only one I would class for me as something of a failure, but he is telling a story and he is doing exactly what was intended. There's definitely a place for him in this game. Especially if you're looking for something that can potentially help with population or something to play around the holiday season as your node 2 quarry monster, nemesis monster. So that's our monsters. I could talk more about them, and I will be talking more about them in the future, but let's get on to our next mechanic, which is a big one. You're going to see a lot of videos on this. I've been writing about this stuff for a year now, and I am still not at the end of them all. This is Ark Survivors and Philosophies. This is the thing that really delayed the Gambler's Chest so much. Adam told a story about it. I'm not going to go into that story because, to be honest, I don't think it's... I wish he hadn't shared it, because it doesn't really instill confidence, and now I kind of do have to talk a bit about it. Basically, he talked about how he envisioned this new system for the survivors, and he was like, either I release the Gambler's Chest under the current systems and we just put this idea on hold and come back to it later, or I do it. And he said he rolled a dice to decide which. This is a multi-million-dollar Kickstarter project. I don't think you should be rolling dice to make your decision, especially if it's going to result in a lot of delays. And I wish he hadn't done that. I wish he hadn't told us about it in particular. It's not as cool and exciting a moment as maybe he thought it was. So yeah, but the thing is, that's the past and it can't be changed. And the system we have for Ark Survivors is It's something I wouldn't change for the world, even though it is clearly causing some strain to the whole Kingdom Death game, and I'll explain a little bit about that in a moment. So I wouldn't change it for the world, but I do not think it being included in Kingdom Death was a good decision for the Kickstarter. It's a good decision for the game, but not for the Kickstarter, and it's also now having knock-on impact on everything else that's coming along. So let's talk about Ark Survivor's Philosophies, why it's really good, and then a little bit about why I've said that it does have issues. So the concept is that instead of fighting arts, you have these things called philosophies. And what happens is when a survivor, they have this new Ark sheet, this new Ark survivor record sheet, reaches their second point of hunt XP, they will unlock a philosophy instead of the normal aging up process. This is drawn from a deck of various different philosophies. I've got here survivalism, as this is the basic, present in all campaigns philosophy, and I think it's one of the best to just kind of highlight things. And I do want to, I did have it out, but the setting up messed things up a bit. I'm just gonna, I don't want to spoil too much of this system. I think exploring it is really great, and I'll be doing spoiler videos later. But yeah, you unlock this book, and in it, it has your new Hunt XP table. It gives you this thing called a neuroses, which is like a impairment, sort of impairment that you always will have. This one you don't encourage half the time, and you have this, if you have this knowledge, you'll have to use it. I'll talk about knowledge in a moment. And you get a tenet, which is your key knowledge, and then you get new hunt ranks. And each time you are a returning survivor, once you've got your philosophy, you will roll on a new rank table. This one's rolled as soon as you unlock the philosophy. You can see it says proceed to rank 1. The rest you have to be a returning survivor to ponder them, as they call it. And that will be rolling on to a flavoured table. So just for example, this one here, you can see you gain a Lummi, which is currency used to buy knowledges. I'll talk about that as well. And then you roll a dice and you get a few different sort of knowledges. And knowledges, I've got one here. This is accuracy training. This is a very nice, simple one to highlight the whole thing. I don't know why that landed wonky, but sure. This replaces fighting arts. And what you get is you have, this is a Lummi cost to buy. This is just all the various naming and keywords. And then you have here what it does, and you have a thing called observations. And they are basically these set of boxes. You will write on your sheet here your knowledges, and you'll mark the number of boxes you need to complete. And once you've achieved all of these given boxes, that survivor will level up this knowledge and it will become stronger. So accuracy training is whenever you successfully hit the monster, you gain a cross out a box, you gain an advancement. That's once per attack. So once you have attacked 6 times with successful hits on the monster, accuracy training 1 will advance to accuracy training 2. What happens is, for that survivor, they get rid of this entirely and they get the new version. And then in your knowledge deck, as it's called, this will go away forever and it will be replaced by this. So as we can see, accuracy training is successfully hit the monster 6 times over 6 attacks, and then you've got a knowledge that gives you a permanent +1 accuracy as long as you have this knowledge. So that's knowledge is kind of in a nutshell. They replace fighting arts almost entirely. Technically you can still get a fighting art. If we go back to the sheet, you're allowed to gain 1 fighting art and 1 secret art, and whenever you gain these you have to deal with this vaultless event that makes it very difficult to get fighting arts. You can get secret fighting arts automatically. There is a slight penalty for getting them. It's a thing called torment and systemic pressure that is paid for gaining these. Systemic pressure is a new thing that, as you have it, you have to subtract it from the number of the roll you make on a severe injury. So if you have 2 systemic pressure, then you're going to have -2 on your roll. So a 4 would become a 2. So that's the part of the price you pay for these. And Torment works for rolling on the brain trauma. Of course, Torment's a lot less scary because you can take Accept Darkness and have a kind of balanced offset between them. Systemic pressure is the one that is genuinely more threatening, but either way, it's an interesting system. It's an interesting way of balancing things. I like it. And then we have Lummy. As I said, this is the currency. So if I grab the forum, this is a new settlement location that gradually becomes unlocked. And what happens is you have a knowledge deck that you'll draw from, and during the settlement phase you'll draw 3 knowledges. Let's just put this out and this, and then I'll just draw face down so we don't draw face down. There we go, like that, and you'll be able to buy them. This is an example. You'll never have a face down card and both versions of accuracy. Let's just flip the face down. So you'd have like this, and you got 3, and a survivor during settlement phase can pay a Lummy to gain that knowledge. So we suddenly have another deck we're gradually adding cards to and upgrading the cards in, somewhat similar to Innovations, but they give us these knowledges that we can put on the survivors we want to put on, as long as we have the Lummy costs. There's other things you can do. We can various different sort of abilities on this. I'll talk about this location all in itself, but the knowledge system allows us to put together the pieces that support a survivor's build. There's knowledges that let you run paired weapons effectively, or allow you to not wear any armor and be very tanky, or give you a bunch of pseudo survival action stat boosts and things. Survivalism, in fact, has a whole bunch of things that you'll look at and go, that's like this knowledge, which is very interesting and fun. This system's great. This system does make survivors more powerful. That's just part of the entire thing, just the way it goes. But I'm okay with that, because if the survivors are more powerful, you can take more risks and push against higher level monsters. And in fact, that's what you're encouraged to do. If we... I can't flip pages like that. It's good to use it. I'm back here? Yeah. So you have a new sheet, and what you got here is this collective cognition system. Again, unfortunately, this is not a fully blank sheet. So we have the problem that if we have different things for these are based on particular node monsters. Like if we have a white lion here, we need to change this to say the white lion cuisine, but we can't do that on the sheet. Anyway, that's just a problem with the sheets in the simulator. Yeah, and I just want to talk about it briefly, but basically we have over here this collective cognition system, and that's based on our victories. So as we kill our, say, prologue lion, white lion, let's say crimson crocodile, kill the crimson crocodile, we get 1 collective cognition. So we'd like to write that up here, and we can't. That's fine. Yeah, so crimson crocodile, there it is, boom, boom, boom. And that would unlock facets of power. And if we come and take a look at that over here, these are these cards. And they are face down like this with the number on them. Once you reach that threshold, you flip it up and you do the thing. This one, you get tier 1 philosophies, which are your basic philosophies. First meal is the introductory event, so this isn't a spoiler. Really, this happens pretty much at the start of Ark Survivors campaigns once you're setting up your settlement the first time. I don't want to click on, I want to go this way. Close this book. Yeah, so I will be talking a lot about this in the future. As I said, right now we're just kind of talking about overview, semi sort of review-ish. Yeah, and I think this system is one of the best things in the Gambler's Chest. It's brilliant. The shame is, I think it would have been better served being a part of a new game, different game, or a whole like fresh start. I do understand the desire that Adam and the team had to put it into the game. I think the game overall is better as a result of it, but Ark Survivors are not for everyone. They add a massive amount more bookkeeping. They slow the game down further. They're not as quote unquote pure, in quotation marks, I should say, pure as fighting arts, and not as simple and straightforward as them. And every single release that has come out since the Gambler's Chest has to cater for both systems. So you have to cater for fighting arts and you have to cater for knowledges. Unless the release you have just doesn't touch that area at all, doesn't care about survivor advancement because it's, I don't know, a piece of gear or something. And that adds more development time and more playtesting time, and also it kind of creates this situation where people are buying something and they're getting stuff they may not ever use or hardly ever use. Especially if you want to stay on fighting arts, you're getting a lot of things, booklets and cards and all sorts of other bits and pieces that you just wouldn't ever use. And even if you flip to knowledges, you still end up getting the fighting arts, and those fighting arts generally have a text on them that says don't put them into the fighting art deck if you're playing with Ark Survivors. So no matter what you do, there's content that you're not going to be using in a given campaign, and you need to play a lot to end up playing with both. And I'll be honest, outside of teaching new players, I don't want to play with with normal survivors anymore. I just want to play with Ark Survivors. It's closer to the role-playing sort of character development that I enjoy. It gives far more cascading sort of things and events and texture and story. There's loads of world building. There's a real good focus on you constructing the survivors you want to construct. It's such a great system that I don't care about the previous system at all, and that means some things fall on the wayside. A great example would be Strain Fighting Arts. I thought that system's really good with the milestones, but you unlock them and you just never see them, because not only is it more difficult to get one fighting art onto a survivor because of the way that the vaultless works, it's also hard to even draw a fighting art in the first place once you're playing with Ark Survivors. It just very, very rarely happens. So all those Echoes of Death that I picked up, they're just kind of not doing anything in 99.99% whatever of my games. And that's a shame, because I really like Infernal Rhythm, for example. It's really fun. It plays with instruments. I love Backstabber. I love Shielderang. There's such fun in those, and I don't get to access them anymore because they're not part of the system. They're kind of like shut out, or virtually shut out of it, and that's a shame. It's just something to be aware of. This is a fork in the road, and unless you have way more time than the average person, you're not going to get to walk down both of these paths. You're going to have to pick one. The Gambler's Chest just represents that. And if you don't like Ark Survivors, you've bought a lot of stuff in this box that just kind of will sit around, and you're going to get more stuff like that in all future releases. The Pariah, the Red Witches, the Frog Dog, they all have Ark Survivor related elements in them, and the non-Ark Survivor related ones as well. So that's the problem. It's a really good system. It just, for me, it's killed the old system stone dead. I really don't want to play with it. and I keep getting these cards that just go into the box and I don't get to play with them unless I specifically force myself to play without Ark Survivors and Knowledges. So amazing system. If you don't like it though, there's a lot of stuff in here. It's like the biggest thing in this box in my opinion. Okay, right, let's get on to our next section. 2 big thumbs up in respect to Ark Survivors from me, even though I have talked about issues. It's just a complicated system, which is what it is. Next up, we got the narrative sculpts, and in particular, characters. Characters is a extra deck. Let's see what we got on top here. There we are. Right, and I'm gonna grab a thing. Let me pause 1 second. Here we go. So, characters is a thing you'll unlock during the play of the campaign, although also you have permission to just stick it in from the beginning. That's come from the top, that's come from Team Death, they're fine with that. It is a deck that you will set up at the start of your campaign that contains a bunch of abilities and impairments, and when a survivor is born, once you have the character innovation in play, they will draw from that deck and gain a particular thing. As you can see here, the axe, this is an ability. You gain +1 accuracy with axes, and then disorderly, this is an example of an impairment. You gain an additional disorder slot. You can have up to 4 disorders instead of 3. There are things like that. Abilities tend to be a small bonus, impairments tend to be a small negative. Sometimes the negative is really big to the point that you just don't really want to use a survivor. And also there is 1 legendary ability per deck that has very big, strong, powerful impact if the survivor gets it. The ones in the Gambler's Chest are pretty decent. They're not the best ones, which I think is a good spot for them to be in. They're fun to play with, and then you kind of swap them out for more powerful, more interesting ones from white box releases, expansions and everything. I like this system. It does add more complexity simply because you've got another set of abilities or impairments to think about, but it is just one thing. It's particular to that character, and you can always just keep the character card out while playing the showdown and then put it back in the deck next time a new survivor's born to draw whatever you get. It is a tidy and simple little system. It has a ton of pages to just talk about all the different sculpts. Some of these are amazing, like this guy, the Mad and Mighty Striker. Big fan of the Leyline Walker as well, love that model. Shadow Stalker, there's some great stuff in here. These 3 are related to something different, plus characters. Yeah, but this is the rules for it. That's it. Yeah, 1 page, fantastic, nice, simple, easy to fit into a campaign. Works well with both systems. Great with fighting arts. Great with knowledges. In fact, I think it might even be slightly better with just the fighting art system, simply because you've got less complexity from fighting arts, but this gives you a survivor who is born. And for example, look here, the spear. -1 permanent blue affinity, oof. Spears in your gear grade gain block 1, neat. I've got this guy, let's get him a spear. So I like characters a lot. Very simple, does a lot, very easy to add to take from. The only real issue is the more cards that come out, the harder it is to justify getting the new cards, because you've already got a whole bunch and they fight for the same space. Because the deck has to be a minimum of 24 cards, and you put in 5 abilities for 1 impairment, and then add a legendary ability card, you don't want to add anything more to the deck at all. You want it to be at the smallest possible size, which is 24 cards plus this legendary ability. And that, in order to draw the legendary ability as often as you possibly can to improve those odds. And that does result in you not being able to play with a huge amount of other cards unless you want to do some house rules. Here's one I can pitch at you that's very simple. every time you draw a character card, after recording it for that character, you take that card, you archive it, you shuffle up all of the character cards of the same type you just removed, ability, impairment or legendary, and you put a new one in to replace it. So if I lost the spear, I could gain the axe one that we just saw, for example. Even without that though, simple, a delight to play with, a lot of fun. Speaking of fun, we have encounters. Encounters, as depicted by this delightful piece of art, is to do with the hunt phase, and it includes a new board, and there are a bunch of encounters due to come, but right now we just have one. It's the Bone Eaters, these lovely chaps, and I'm going to set up the showdown, which will look like something like this. The encounter board disappeared. This is going to be wild. If the encounter board disappeared, I'm concerned what's going to happen when I do the automatic setup. You know what? Let's unlock and just move the board over here, just in case. Open, rotate, anchor it here, and then I need to grab, let's see, skull. Where are you, skull? Maybe knife? There. Okay, timed the way I thought so. Okay. This might break things, but we're mostly past miniatures, so let's see. We do setup. Let's just do we'll do the level 2 encounter. Okay, it's not worked. That's fine. Alright. Okay, so I can't really go into I'm gonna have to pause. I'm gonna have to pause to see if I can. I'm gonna have to do this by hand. I'll be back in a moment. Well, that took a while. Suffice to say, it's definitely still a few teething troubles on the simulator. Finding everything, but here it all is. This is an example of one of the setups for the Bone Eaters. You'll have your HUD board across the top here, and then you'll have this under here. This is the little data sheet that covers the Bone Eaters. For the most part, they got these basic actions, which they do one at a time in the order of their initiative cards. They have an instinct, and they also have these decks. So these, we've got counters, opportunities, and lantern crits. So the way this kind of works is like encountering a group of wandering monsters during a dungeon crawl. They're not the big boss, so they're not like the final enemy that you're going to face, but you do have to overcome them, otherwise you're done. And you'll have this, let me grab it, bone, you have a card in your hunt deck that replaces the normal basic hunt event and gives you this encounter. The little symbol in the middle here with the hourglass, that indicates that you cannot encounter them before this lantern year, as it says at the bottom here, and otherwise you have to fight them. Once you defeat a given level encounter, or you have a given level encounter I should say, it will level up. There are 4 levels to the Bone Eaters, gradually becoming more and more dangerous. This is the level 3 one. I wanted to set this one up because it's the first time that all 5 Bone Eaters go on the board. They have a little, sorry, it's not, the board itself is kind of glitchy slightly on the names, but they have a little dice. This is awful to use in person, but it's a lot smoother here. You can see it just tracks their health points. They don't have a normal AI deck. They each have their own little separate amount of health. They have all of these guys at this they're set 2 here, but it should be, yeah, it's 2. Yeah, they have 3 at level 4. They have extra traits and things, but the neat part of these decks here. So first of all, this dictates the order in which they act. So there's 5 cards, and you'll draw one, and you look and you go, okay, well that is this guy here. And so he'll go. And they do the encounter monster basic action, closest threat in range, and move, and you do the attacks. If they get any perfect hits, you have to draw an opportunity card for them, which gives them an extra bonus, making the attack more dangerous. So perfect hits on monsters, they matter here. Usually they don't matter. Flower Knight I think is an exception, but these matter here. And then also we have happening during the survivors' turns, we've got critical wounds, which are drawn from this. Otherwise, a wound reduces their health by 1. This will reduce their health by 1, but maybe do something else as well. And then you've got counters. So if you attack the monsters from an angle that triggers the counter condition, you suffer it. So in the case of Bone Eaters, if you attack from anywhere other than their blind spot, which is the space behind them, you will suffer a counter. So if this guy moved here and attacked, then he'd suffer a counter card after the attack occurred, because the monster hits back, and this is kind of how they scale. It is a very neat system. This whole thing of encounters is great. I am super excited to see more encounters. They do a few interesting things. If we look down here, you do gain weapon proficiency, which I think is such a good element to have, because getting weapon proficiency done up is it's really fun to get the unlocks, but it's a lot of fights to get there, and having anything that speeds it up a bit is really fun. They also have some special, particular, unique resources they're going to drop. Not resources, rare gear. And these guys tie into one of the philosophies in a really fun manner as well. Straight up, no sort of debate about it for me. I love the Bone Eaters. I want them in all of my campaigns, and the only reason I wouldn't play with them is if I had other encounters to put in, but I'd be kind of tempted to just stuff lots of encounters into the deck, because eventually, once you've been through all of the level encounters, these guys go away forever, they don't come back, so they do have a finite number of times you'll encounter them, 4 in the case of Bone Eaters. So yeah, this is a really good system. It's really fun, and it expands Kingdom Death in a way that I greatly love. It does, of course, make showdowns a little bit longer, but that's okay for me. Just be aware of that. Not showdowns, hunts, full hunts, because it extends the hunt phase slightly. Okay, I have to flick the pages back now, and we'll get on to our next coloured section, which is patterns and seed patterns. Talked about seed patterns already in videos before, so I'm not going to dwell on them too much, and normal patterns as well, but we will, for the sake of completeness, just talk about them here. First of all, you have indomitable patterns. These are gained under certain circumstances. You can gain patterns under other ways, so these blackback ones, you have to get them under a specific set of circumstances. Indomitable resources would be one of those. Let's see, it should let me get, so for example, here's our indomitable resources, and you'll draw that like this, and it says when you gain this, you gain a particular pattern. This is a Crimson Crocodile one. I'm not going to show you the actual weapon, but you can see the crafting recipe. Vampire Fang is the specific indomitable resource drawn, and then sometimes it has some other things. These crafting costs tend to be cheaper by design, which I really like. It generally lets you make the pattern gear almost immediately after drawing it, because you get these from level 3 monsters, so they have a lot of drops, which I should have mentioned at the beginning of where indomitable resources come from. Level 3 versions of the particular monsters. They offer very interesting, powerful, and unique ways of playing. It's an amazing system. I'm glad that it has been expanded out. The only negative that comes in the case of this particular one is, I'm just going to do this, I'm afraid, is that as you can see, as I flip these out into their various piles, we're getting Indomitables for the new guys. It's actually put all of the Indomitables in together, so there we are. It's a Gorm. But these ones here for the White Lion and the Screaming Antelope did not come in the Gambler's box. These are separate. That is Lion Claw Lenora, that is Zell. There are none in the core box at all. Like that's Kale. Impacted Gus, that's Scrimmery. Yeah. So you get Smog Singers, you get Phoenix, you get King, and I think some of them were already separated out. I think we saw that in, you get Crimson Crocodile, which has been separated. You get these. And I think it's a shame that White Lion and Screaming Antelope was not included in this box, because Phoenix was, and Scout Discoveries for these guys were. Seed Patterns. Very fun system. When at a certain point a survivor will trigger Dandelions and Designs, which is, I believe, is when they first reach. Can we flip this, please? Oh, it's the previous page. That's what I have to click on. This isn't working exactly the same as the booklets, so a little bit of an issue there, but not too much. Here we are. First survivor reach true understanding triggers this Dandelion Designs and Dandelions little event, and then you will be instructed to set up a seed pattern deck. It includes generic seeds, which are just listed like this with the word seed on top, and then ones for the monsters you have in the campaign, specific ones. We have how many you can make, their identifying number. 13 is missing on purpose, so don't worry if that's not in the box. It's excluded for reasons. We got the this is like the era, so it requires resources from at least this given node monster. This is like at least node 2. Crafting recipe, and then a bunch of these are other bits and pieces required. So this needs leather making, so we have to be able to make leather. We need to have heat from our innovations, and we have to have a perfect organ. But importantly, the perfect organ isn't part of the recipe, so it's not consumed during the process. This is what's used to make it. These are the other bits and pieces we need, and there's some like neat little bits of flavour extra all on this card. Seed Patterns is an amazing system. It's really fun. It adds so much to the game. It basically gives you this little menu of semi-randomised gear cards. The only negatives to it are it kind of sucks to draw a king seed pattern very early on, because you can't do anything with it. And also, Insight is pretty easy to trigger on survivors, and that will draw more seed cards, so you can deplete the deck fairly quickly if you're pumping out a lot of population. But you know, that is something you are in control of. The issue of drawing seed patterns too early or far too late is a bit hard to deal with, because weapons and even some of these seed patterns result in armor sets. If you get them at the wrong time, if you get them too late, it's just a excuse me, yawning. It's just a dead draw, and that's a shame. I do have a house rule I play with my friends to cover this up, which is what we do is the deck is set up with just the seed patterns, the generic seed patterns initially, and then as the monsters are added in, their matching seed patterns are mixed in as well. So the very start of the seed pattern deck will have Era 1 seeds plus say Crimson Crocodile and Frog Dog, and then once the Screaming Antelope is unlocked as a quarry, those will get shuffled in, and Era 2 ones will get shuffled in as well. So gradually I add to the deck and build it up to the full size, just to make it sure that you don't draw a king pattern, seed pattern, and go, I can't make this for like 20 years. That's can be a fun anticipation, but it's a bit more sweet to have it happen at the point that you start hunting a particular monster. Not official, just the house rule I play with my friends. Under the official one, it still works fine. It's just sometimes you'll get draws that are not great, and that's Kingdom Death for you. Excellent system. Patterns, fantastic. Just they're continuously being added to through promo releases and new expansions. I cannot praise this enough. All of it is absolutely fantastic. I love it to pieces. Right, then we got Scouts. So the Scout was originally pitched as, how does the gear of a fully party white set of survivors get back to the settlement? The concept was there's a fifth survivor who sneaks out with them and watches and is under an oath to not interfere. If they die, they die, and the Scout waits until the monster leaves the area and then comes in and recovers the gear. That was the original pitch. Additionally, you could innovate a special death pact that would allow the Scout to come onto the showdown board, but if you did that, you were risking all of your gear. I love this pitch. I'm therefore saddened that the actual Scout system doesn't quite follow that. You do have your Scout. Here's the male one. I couldn't find the female one in the cabinet or via the search methods. I'm sure she's in there somewhere, but some of the things are still not quite labelled right. That's the risk that you pay when you jump on trying to talk about these things early-ish. I'm sure it'll be all fixed in an update a little bit down the line. So the Scout is a fifth survivor. They have a normal survivor sheet, but they have this Scout board that gives them 4 gear slots and drops the dreaded pack on them that has a few negatives, like it's heavy, it's stinky, -2 movement. The Scout will be on the showdown board. There's all of these extra little rules to it. They'll have Scout specific gear that no other survivors can use. They don't count as a returning survivor for an endeavour, etc. The thing is that basically all of the gear, unless it gets recovered by the Scout, just gets lost. It effectively has irreplaceable. And what that creates is a very high stakes game where you cannot afford to lose a showdown, because if you lose a showdown and the Scout fails to get out of there, you are in a lot of trouble. You could lose all of your viable armor sets and be thrown back to whatever previous tier of armor sets you had. So what it creates is a game system that encourages you to either throw a fight by sending naked survivors out to it because you know you can't win, or you feel you can't win and you don't want to gamble your gear, or to play it super safe and just ensure that you beat monsters by playing the most boring, straightforward, risk-free form of play. Now, I don't like that, and I don't like Scouts. I don't play with Scouts in my game unless I am testing a new release or something. This is just one of those things where I love the concept and the idea more than I like the way it's played. You get this Death Pact. That's the whole logistics of death thing. You get a new crafting location with unique pieces of gear that are super interesting, and when you innovate Pictograph, you gain access to the Scout Discovery cards. I'm not going to spoil them in this video, but you beat a level 3 version of the monster, and on top of Indomitable Resources, you'll separately get this Scout Discovery. You'll draw this card. It gives you an insight into something to do with the monster you've just defeated, and you roll on a table and you can get some very interesting unique rare gear or bonuses that are thematic to the monster. I really like that. I like the Scout Hunt events, which this goes into your deck, replacing a basic Hunt event card. That's an interesting table to play with. I like all of that. I just do not like this whole loss of all of the gear. It forces me to play in a way that I don't like. I want to play a bit loose. I want to try some stuff that might work or might not work. I want to experiment a bit. I don't want to be putting everything all in and tee up every single time I go out on a hunt. That's not fun to me personally. It's not an experience I enjoy. I'm not alone in this either. I've heard this expressed from other content creators who talked about how they don't really want to use them, and I agree. Also, and this is the interesting flip side of the thing, you have a 5th survivor. Sure, they've only got 4 gear cards and they've got nerfed movement, but they have all of their survival and survival actions, and that really does help the party out as well. So it creates in total a feast and famine kind of experience. You're eating good. If things go wrong though, forget about it, and quite often you can just throw your whole campaign in the bin. And Kingdom Death can be a difficult game which is wrecked by chance anyway. That it just happens sometimes. But suddenly we're adding even more in on this. So ultimately, I wanted what was pitched. We didn't get that. I would have liked a scout who they were present on the hunt, and then on the showdown they would stay off the board. That would have been really interesting to me, especially, it could have been a little cost of having the scout being on the hunt, but also benefits for it. That would have been super interesting. I would have greatly enjoyed that as pitched. I don't like the final form. You may feel differently. Some people do, some people really like this, but it's not for me. Wanderers, next bit. So Wanderers is another system I really like. I'm not a huge fan of the Wanderer who comes in the box, but later Wanderers have been great. So the concept of Wanderers they join the settlement from outside. They stay as their story goes through, and then once their story concludes, or if they die, then things are different. I really want to see these guys get their Wanderers on the crest. They don't. It's this chap here, Warlock the Wanderer. He turns up very late in the timeline. If you look, Lantern Year 23 is when he turns up. That's for me kind of his issue. He turns up so late that I'm concentrating on my own survivors. Other Wanderers do turn up earlier, and these guys being on the table here, they accidentally got put in early, but these two are my favourite of the Wanderers. Aeneas is the third one I really like. She's not in the simulator, I couldn't find her, but this is the Death Drifter, albeit with the wrong base, and Candy and Cola. These are great examples of really, really, really good Wanderers. Luck the Wanderer, Luck, what it's called, he's fine. It's just he turns up quite late on, and I don't have so much time for him. Ultimately, I'll be doing separate videos on each of the Wanderers as and when they come out, and doing as much of a dive as I can. I like the system, I like the insights it gives to the world. I just don't care about Wanderers turning up that late in a campaign, and that's just a little bit of shame for luck. And that is all of the general systems and kind of overview. There's a few other bits and pieces to look at. We've got our this little extra tray here that comes out. That has these terrain underneath it. That's where the fingers were, and there's this. These, they haven't done it in this, but in the physical copy, they actually sit here and here, which is pretty neat. We've got other bits and pieces like I'm in the box, that's why. Up here we got this. This is the sharp dice. It's really fun. Razor sharp dice. Sorry, it's a variant of sharp, which is neat. And this little box here, bag even. This bag, you open that eventually when playing the campaign. It's a fun moment. And then we have this, which I really like. This is the settlement box. So this has a bunch of slots for you to store stuff specific for your settlement in, including your settlement's knowledges and the rare gear you've got, and so on and so forth. If, for example, if we just grab these, and they should just pop in there. There we go. See? We can grab these seed patterns, and they'll just go into there and be organised as well, as you can see. So it's really nice. In physical, this is sweet as heck. I'd love to have a second box like this, although it's hard to run multiple settlements on the same box and keep things in it. So perhaps just one copy is all we need. But it is a very nice place to keep stuff to do with your settlement tidy. This insert is pretty solid. I didn't end up keeping it in physical. I did replace it, and that is just because it struggled with sleeves. It's fine if you don't sleeve your cards, and in the digital form it's fantastic because you don't need to worry about it taking up space beyond the digital space it sits on. So yeah, that is an opening and sort of semi-rambling-ish review and thoughts on the various different parts of the Gambler's Chest. And that brings us to the final kind of rub, is should you get this and when should you get this? And the answer is a little complicated because there's a bunch of different systems in this. You're buying a lot of separate expansions. There is good value for money in here. You may engage with parts that I'm not quite so keen on, like the Scout or Luck. You may find them really, really enjoyable. You may love having Atnas out and breaking him out all year round. There's something for everyone here. The difficulty is we need campaigns of death to provide the other half of the picture, because this box serves the Phoenix really well. It also provides a couple of new cards for the Flower Knight. I talked about those in the Flower Knight Dark Bestiary. They're okay. They don't solve the problems of the Flower Knight, but they're okay. And yeah, that's sort of the big question, is when would you get it? And I think once you've at least faced the Gold Smoke Knight, that's the time when you should be thinking about, do I get this? Or if you have played a bunch of campaigns and you get to the Watcher, you're doing okay, but you feel like you want more options and you want a bigger, more robust character leveling system, then that's another reason to get into this. There are some exceptional miniatures. There are some fantastic monsters. There are some incredible systems in this. It is a really good box. It's just hard to recommend it wholeheartedly for everyone, because honestly, some people might just need a couple of extra quarry monsters. So the Gorm is still really good, but if you picked up the Frog Dog instead, which is also really good, you'd have these extra bits and pieces that they're only for when you have the Gambler's Chest. And it's the same with the Pariah and the Red Witches and the Black Knight. There's some stuff exclusively in there that doesn't do anything unless you own the Gambler's Chest. So do you buy the earlier stuff and play with that and experience Kingdom Death pre-Gambler's Chest before you buy the Gambler's Chest, or do you jump in and pick up the Gambler's Chest and go for this bigger thing, well, hopefully you've seen enough of it now to know whether you're super excited about what's in this, or if you're like, well, I can wait a bit, I'd rather carry on with the current systems and experience all of that. The final thing would be the People of the Dreamkeeper campaign. This requires you to use everything, all of the stuff in the box in the campaign, or almost all of it. I personally don't play that campaign anymore because it requires you to play with Luck, who I'm very ambivalent on. It requires you to play the Scouts that I actively dislike, and also I kind of enjoy fighting the Watcher and the Gold Smoke Knight more than the Gambler and the Godhand pair, because I feel the Watcher offers more variety in how you can approach the showdown. The Gambler, as amazing as it is, does have a gimmick that you have to bend for, and I think the Gold Smoke Knight for me is epic in the way that I enjoy in comparison to the Godhand. The Godhand feels overwhelmingly powerful, kind of just by the nature of it creates a sort of body pile, like body count, whereas the Gold Smoke Knight, you got those 4 and you better get it right there and then. I can't be more specific than that without really getting into it, but I'll say I played a bunch with the Gambler and the Godhand, and lately I'm now back onto playing with the Watcher, and I think I'll be playing Watcher Gold Smoke Knight for most of 2026, unless we get new finale bosses turning up, with Campaigns to Death arriving sooner than expected. So that's it. That's it. I'm going to stop now. I'm going to be coming back to so much of this in other videos and talking about it here and there and everything. I'm really happy it's on the simulator. I think it's a lot cheaper to pick up on the simulator, which makes it easier. In fact, let's do it now. Let's go straight to the shop and get that price. It is $42 on the simulator, or part of the master key if you did happen to pick that up during Black Friday. I think $42 is an incredible price and worth picking up if you play just on the simulator. It's more expensive in physical, obviously, because it has a lot in it, a lot of components. But it is a good box. I'm really happy that I have it. It's $333 at time of viewing. I'm really close to Black Friday, and I don't know if the sale has closed properly or not, but yeah. It is, as they call it on the site, the biggest expansion ever. It is transformative. It really does change some things, and it's very modular. So the stuff that I'm not so keen on, I don't have to play with, which is nice. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna stop it here. Otherwise, I'll end up talking for another hour about things, and I can save that for other videos. So there we are. That's my rambling thoughts while opening and pulling bits and pieces out and talking about it all. I am very positive on the Gambler's Chest. I have very few things which I have issues with, and I can leave those without being too concerned about them. I think it's great, and if you like what you see, you're excited about it, you'll have a great time with this. And that's it. So until next time, thanks for watching and happy hunting.